Boom, boo, 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 boo. And here's the news with Mikey P. But the real problem is Iran. That is basically the boss of Hamas. Right. So here's the interesting thing when you think about it on a World War III scale is that Iran is a part of BRICS, which is a part of that new currency and trade agreement between, Brazil, Russia, Iran, South America, and China. And I know there's other countries that are sort of getting on board with it. So I can easily see this spiraling out of control. It's the fucking assassination of Franz Ferdinand, right? The one instance that sort of sparks everything else. We're in that moment here. So because we gotta go, and like America's on our way to Israel, right? If we're not there already, we're gonna put troops on the ground. We're gonna go in there. Like they're our allies. We have to go in there, and I support that is because what's going on is heinous. But we also got to see what's going on the other side too, which is pretty heinous as well. So, both sides have been shitty actors on a world stage, and let's talk about it. Again, this is coming from a doughy guy in Ohio who has a very cursory knowledge of the entire situation, but I've been looking into it. I'm gonna do my best, and we'll see what happens. Fuck it, fuck it, fuck it in the bucket. Okay, so Israel is at war with Hamas. Here's what to know. Okay, and of course it's CNN, which is basically American propaganda device. CNN is in direct contact with our government, and they take orders from our DOJ and our alphabet institutions. Israel has declared war on the Palestinian militant group Hamas after it carried out an unprecedented attack by air, sea, and land on Saturday. Now, these people were coming in parasails. They had fucking fans and machine guns mounted on a parachute, and they just came in fucking shooting, coming through tunnels. It's fucking crazy, dude. This is an unprecedented attack. We've never seen anything quite like this, I don't think. The large-scale surprise assault has left at least 900 dead in Israel, prompting a lethal volley of retaliatory Israeli airstrikes on Gaza that killed at least 560 people. As they retreated into Gaza, the militants claim to have taken at least 100 hostages with them. Israel has pledged that Hamas will pay a heavy price. So what happened? Militants from Gaza. Hold on, let me get this up for you guys a little better. Come on, bitch. Come on, bitch. What are you doing? There we go. Militants from Gaza fired thousands of rockets towards Israeli towns on Saturday morning before breaking through the heavily fortified border fence with Israel and sending militants deep into Israeli territory. Their Hamas gunmen killed hundreds of people, including civilians and soldiers, and took hostages, sometimes from their homes. And that's politely saying what's going on there. That is a very formal way of saying rape, murder, kill innocents. It took Israeli troops more than 2 days to take back control as fighting raged in the streets. On Monday, the Israel Defense Forces said it had retaken control of all Israeli communities in Gaza's vicinity on its southern border after fighting with Hamas ended. Let me refresh. For show, baby. The attacks were unprecedented in tactic and scale, as Israel has not faced its adversaries in street battles on its own territory since the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Now, I'm trying to debate whether or not we should actually go back and look into the history of this, but I think, we can all do that on our own. I think we'll keep it. I think it'll give us better context and into what's going on. But we'll see how far we get. No, I see mine again. Okay, good. You saw it and I didn't. Gotcha. Uh, while Hamas has kidnapped Israelis before, it has never been taken dozens of hostages at once, including children and the elderly. And there was a Nazi, a fucking Holocaust survivor grandmother who was kidnapped. Could you imagine? Could you even put yourself in that place where there was a grandmother who survived the fucking Holocaust? Was this unexpected attack? Yes, it was a surprise attack by the terror organization Hamas, which is backed by Palestine and Iran. Which Iran has been. We've been talking shit about. We've been talking about going into Iran for a very long time. So this is a great way for us to kind of go in there and start just pillaging resources. And the crazy thing is that America's military is at its lowest for people to volunteer in a decade or so. So we don't have a lot of people. We don't have a lot of faith in our government. We all know that America is at odds with itself, and this is only creating more division because you got a bunch of people who are pro-Palestine, and you got more people who are pro-Israel. It's just another stake and another wedge, and no one has faith in this government. I certainly don't. I think it's just been taken and captured by corporate interests, and it doesn't seem to be a great country to serve. So it's interesting to see how spread we are as a country, as a war machine, because on one hand, we're sending billions of dollars over to Ukraine. We're also, we're also on the edge of what's going on with China and Taiwan. We have Russia going on. All these countries are coming together in this weird trade agreement of BRICS. So it's going to be interesting to see how we're going to be able to hold all the fronts. And it's not looking good for us. It's not looking good. It's a very scary moment right now because Iran is a nuclear armed country. I believe Israel is too. Russia is definitely, right? So this all could go real shitty real fast. Hamas called the operation Al-Aqsa storm and said that the assault was a response to what it described as Israeli attacks on women and destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem and the ongoing siege of Gaza. Hamas launched surprise air. Okay, so there is something here, right? They're talking about this. I don't know what this. Don't think Iran is nuclear weapon. Hold on. I'm pretty sure. Iran nuclear agreement, formerly known as September 12. Iran had been on the topic of international concern due to its nuclear program, which some countries suspected that they might be aimed at developing nuclear weapons. While Iran insisted it was for peaceful purposes, however, I do not have access to real-time information. So, officially, they are not. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Moving Dutchman. I swear I read that somewhere. Can Iran have nuclear weapons? According to U.S. intelligence assessments, Tehran has the capacity to produce nuclear weapons at some point, but has halted the nuclear weapons program and has not mastered all the necessary technologies. Okay, so that's what's coming from Iran and nuclear productions and the CRSreport.gov. So this is coming from our government. So not officially, but dirty bombs, that's nuclear bombs, right? And Iraq didn't have nuclear weapons. Oh, God, our government will just lie about shit to go take their oil. I mean, that's what it's all about for us. We're just in it for resources, power, and we're making billions and trillions of dollars for the military industrial complex, for the big oil, right? You got people who are reconstructing. We have companies that like Halliburton, right? Dick Cheney was on the board for Halliburton, and he was the vice president, and they gave no big contracts during the Iraq invasion, no big contracts to Who can we take a guess? No big contracts to rebuild Iraq. It was Halliburton. So really interesting, right? How that all sort of works, and it all sort of benefits the people who are in charge, elite, making money, corporate interest. That's why I say that our country has been captured by corporate interest, and that's just where we're at. Everybody's just trying to scramble to make the money before it all goes to shit. So yes, unofficially, thank you, Moving Dutchman, for that fact check. I appreciate you, buddy. So where were we? Oh yeah, I wanted to know what this was. What is this? Israeli police storm Al-Aqsa Mosque for second time on Wednesday. So this is from April of 2023. Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, one of Islam's holiest sites, for the second time on Wednesday, hours after they first raided the compound and arrested hundreds of Palestinians. Despite condemnations from the Arab and Muslim world. The clashes, which took place as I wish I knew how to say that correctly, sees worshippers offering prayers during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, and Jews celebrate Passover on Wednesday evening, sparked retaliatory rocket fire from militants in Gaza. During the first incident on Wednesday morning, footage shared on social media showed Israeli officers striking, screaming people with batons inside the darkened building. Eyewitnesses told CNN that police had smashed doors and windows to enter the mosque and deployed stun grenades and rubber bullets once inside. Videos shared by Israeli police show forces holding riot shields up as fireworks were launched back at them, ricocheting off the walls. Israeli police said, what the fuck? So wait, hold on, let's watch this fucking video. There was an issue. Bitch, fucking handle the issue. Oh, you whore. Okay, so I guess we'll just read on for a bit. The Palestinian Red Crescent in Jerusalem said at least 12 people were injured during the clashes in and around the mosque, and at least 3 people of the injured were transferred to the hospital, some with injuries from rubber bullets. The Red Crescent added that at one point its ambulances were targeted by police and were prevented from reaching the injured. Police said they arrested and removed more than 350 people in the mosque, and that 2 Israeli police officers were wounded. That's so they're saying because of this raid, that's why. And why did they raid it though? I don't understand why they raided it. The Palestinian Red Crescent in Jerusalem said Israeli police in the statements entered Al-Aqsa after hundreds of rioters and mosque desecrators barricaded themselves inside. When the police entered, stones were thrown at them and fireworks were fired from inside the mosque by a large group of agitators. So they were going in because of rioters and mosque desecrators? So they were rioting and then they went in there? Interesting. There were 350 people. Images shared on social media show dozens of detained people lying face down. During the second incident on Wednesday evening, armed Israeli forces deployed stun grenades and ordered Muslims worshiping there to leave immediately. Social media shows. Israeli police said in a statement, dozens of law-breaking juveniles, some of them masked, had thrown fireworks and stones into the mosque and tried to barricade themselves inside. Okay, so I guess they're rioters or something. So that's the official word of why they're fucking raping women. The fuck? That's ridiculous. That is not good. It's way more than that, right? Because there's 75 years of beef going on here, so it's way more than that, I would imagine. But Hamas launches surprise air attack and ground attack from Gaza. So here's Gaza. They're showing what's going on here. Rockets struck Tel Aviv. And we got friends, right? We got I want to reach out to shit. What's his name? What's the Twitch streamer's name? Lives in Tel Aviv? God damn it! What's his name? He's been on the show several times. Shit. Anyways, how has Israel responded? In response to the attack, Israel has declared war and launched Operation Swords of Iron, striking around 500 Hamas and Islamic Jihad targets in Gaza so far and killing hundreds in the process. The IDF has urged civilians in Gaza to leave the residential areas immediately for their safety as Israeli military operations continue to target Hamas and shut all crossings between Israel and Gaza, potentially setting the stage for a ground incursion into the enclave. So, yeah, this is what's going on. And it's pretty shitty. It's a pretty shitty situation. So, let's jump into what's going on with. We'll start with Bruno Mars. It's such a weird transition. It's like, horror and mayhem and chaos in the streets of Israel. Now let's go over to Bruno Mars. Well, we got to keep it somewhat music over here, right? Bruno Mars cancels sold out show, sold out Tel Aviv concert and flee. Okay, let's do that again for editing purposes. Bruno Mars cancels sold out Tel Aviv concert and flees Israel following the Hamas attacks. So there's Bruno looking all sexy with his mustache. So Bruno Mars canceled his second sold-out show in Tel Aviv, Israel, after Hamas militants launched a surprise wave of attacks from Gaza on Saturday. Mars, 38, was set to perform a second show at some park in Tel Aviv on October 7th, following a concert at the venue on Wednesday, October 4th. Both dates were sold out, according to the Jerusalem Post. But as gun battles continue to rage across the region, the show's organizers, Live Nation Israel, issued a statement on its official Instagram page early on Saturday morning announcing that the performance has been called off. The statement, originally posted in Hebrew, says, "Dear customers, the performance of Bruno Mars that was planned to take place tonight is canceled. All ticket buyers for the show will receive an automatic refund to the credit card with which the purchase was made." It continued, "We are strengthening the residents of Israel and the IDF fighters and the security forces in these difficult moments." So here's that post, which we can't. It's from Live Nation Israel. Israeli television presenter Guy Pines confirmed that the singer had left the country on Saturday afternoon. The Times of Israel reported that Pines, who documented his attendance, Nader Tater, welcome in, baby boo, who documented his attendance at Mars' concert the evening before, shared an Instagram story showing Mars and his crew at the departures terminal at Ben Gurion. I can't say any of these words. Alongside the photo, he wrote, to your question, after the cancellation of the show due to the war, Bruno Mars has left Israel today at 2 in the afternoon together with 60 crew members. Damn, that's a lot of people. He flew to Athens, and from there he will head to Qatar to continue his tour. Saturday's concert would have seen Mars join the ranks of Madonna and Michael Jackson as the only artists who have played two sold-out shows at Hayakran Park, Israeli newspaper. So, there's like Roger Waters is someone who boycotted performing in Israel because of his beliefs that Israel is a mistreatment of Palestinians. So there's other artists who have chosen not to perform in Israel because of their beliefs of what the terrible things going on to the Palestinians within Israel's borders and illegal borders. The outlet also reported that Mars, who is 1/4 Jewish, surprised the audience by speaking a few words in Hebrew during his first show. Representatives of Mars did not respond to requests for comment. And and here's the other part of this story is that this was a makeup show from the pandemic. So he played a club, and then he was supposed to do this makeup show, but the pandemic struck, I guess is the word. And so he had to cancel that show. So it's interesting that this show got canceled as well. I think Rolling Stone covered this a little better. So Bruno Mars is out. He's like, fuck that, not dealing with it. YouTube, we'll check out this first. So here's a really shitty thing that happened. Hamas attacked the Supernova festival in Israel, and it was a terrible, terrible event, and there's a lot of terrible images that's been coming out here. Thousands of young people were partying at dawn when Palestinian militants opened fire. Now, this was a plural, is that what they call it? Plur? Peace, love, unity, and something. It's that kind of festival. So with EDM, a lot of people were high on drugs. And in the early morning, they were still up partying, hanging out, and all of a sudden, people come from respect. Yeah, people flew in on paragliders, shooting, just came in fucking firing on these kids who were just there to party. A German was was murdered and taken hostage. Americans, a lot of shit went down. So let's watch this video if it fucking works. The Palestinian militant group Hamas launched the biggest attack on Israel in years, firing rockets and tearing down the border between Israel and the Gaza Strip. This is them actually going and taking down the wall with fucking construction equipment, fucking ripping the wall down so people can come and invade Israel. The Supernova Dance Festival was taking place in southern Israel. And this is drone footage, and this is the aftermath. So it's very eerie on what you see here is like, because there's still tents up, and there's cars, there's bodies strewn around. Looks like the Mexican. It's kind of like that, right? Kind of like it. Very interesting now that we have all these immigrants who are coming over, and people are getting mad in these super liberal cities who are like, open up the borders. And then now they're all like, wait, close the borders. Joe Biden's now building the wall back up that he promised he wouldn't build. And why wouldn't you want to filter the people coming into your country? Israel they're like, fuck you, stay the fuck out. If they can do it, we can do it. And if they're their allies, then our allies, and they are proud of their walls, right? I think Jerusalem is surrounded by a big wall. I think a lot of the cities in Israel is surrounded by big walls. I mean, I'm not opposed to the wall. It's not going to work. I mean, because they're going to just come in under tunnels and they'll just find different ways in. It's kind of moot, but it is sort of a symbol of strength in my eyes. And plus, we have a ton of fentanyl coming in here. It's interesting also that this is sort of dividing the left, right? Because there's lefties who are like pro-Palestine, then there's lefties who are like pro-Israel. And they're kind of going at each other. Don't mind the White House building a bigger fence. Right. Don't ignore that. Let's not even talk about that. So the festival is taking place in southern Israel, 3 miles from the Gaza border where Hamas militants are based. So I gotta say, if your country is under attack by a terrorist organization that's being backed by several, not world powers, but several countries that are your enemy, you'd think you'd want to cancel that shit. But this festival was just a festival to celebrate peace, and it was also celebrating a Jewish holiday. It was called like Sukkot. I can't remember. So it's an EDM festival. Let's go. This video is shared to hundreds. So look at this. This is fucking nuts, dude. Look at these motherfuckers coming in on parachutes, and they have like little fans on them. They're like paragliders, and they're just sort of coming in. And you can see them just floating down while Hamas fighters paraglided toward them overhead. Look at their partying. They're high as fuck, probably on Molly and whatever the fuck else they ingested, right? And then boom, minutes after security officers launched an evacuation. People are running. Gunmen open fire and chase fleeing revelers across the desert. And there's no place to hide except for behind vehicles. And that didn't end up being a good place to hide either. This is families. Look at this hippie with the poncho. By the way, there's this like super hot girl that's like the image of this attack. She's super hot though. It's a shame. In one video, a young Israeli woman could be seen driven away on a motorbike. Yeah, so they're just kidnapping women. And again, they are fucking sexually assaulting these ladies. Her partner was marched away by two men. Jesus Christ, it's horrible. Dashcam footage captured militants at the festival site while bodies lay on the ground. And this is a Hamas soldier. One woman could be seen being dragged away by militants while smoke billowed in the sky. Look, she's just being drug off. Drone footage from the festival site shows destruction left by Hamas fighters. And I mean, look at this shit, man. This is just like scorched earth. Cars are on their side. Fucking body bags, bodies strewn around. It's fucking it's a hellscape. It's so fucking sad, man. Yeah, people just abandoned their cars and ran, trying to find shelter somewhere, but it's a big open desert, so where are they gonna hide? Where there's no place to hide. It was very well coordinated. An Israeli rescue service said they retrieved hundreds of bodies in the area. So let's sort of get into what's going on here. What was the party in the desert? The Supernova Music Festival, billed as a journey of unity and love with mind-blowing and breathtaking content, began around 10 p.m. on Friday, just hours after the end of Israel's week-long Sukkot religious festivals. Thousands of young people signed up for the party in a place stunning for its beauty, but were not told of exact location until a few hours before. It was Kibbutz Re'em, 3 miles from the Gaza border. Fuck, dude. So it was one of those like secret parties. I don't know if you guys ever been to like a warehouse rave, but there's ways that they set it up. And this is a rave, right? This is definitely a rave. You know, like in Detroit, when the big EDM or techno scene hit Detroit, there was warehouses where they would just invade warehouses. And what's interesting about Detroit is that you have these huge abandoned warehouses that had huge, I'm telling you, fucking just mind-blowingly huge, where automakers, you know, like Ford or Chrysler, they used to manufacture vehicles there. So these are fucking multi-level, fucking, like multiple, St. Louis had the same, that's sweet. And the way that it was multi-level, fucking taking up, you know, several football field size building. And the way that would work is that you would, before, and this was before the internet, the way it would work is that you would show up at a certain location, and someone would be just sort of standing around, and then they would tell you where the place was. If you had, sometimes there were like secret passwords, sometimes there was text blasts when cell phones started coming into play. So it was always a secret right before the show to avoid cops sort of invading and shutting down the show. So there was a lot of these just underground parties going on in Detroit, and Detroit was a big hub for that kind of music. I believe that was in the 90s. So there was a lot of shit going on. So in that tradition, that's what was going on with this festival. Rave in the Cave was my favorite. Yeah, I've only been to like a couple raves, and it fucking, I was so wasted. It was terrible. Like I couldn't. Like I've had all these good times I can't remember. So thousands of young people signed up for the party in a place stunning for its beauty, but were not told of the exact location until a few hours before. 3 stages underground. That's sick, Naders. Rave in the Cave. Hold on, I gotta pause for the cause. Rave in the Cave. Oh shit! Look at this. Rave in the English plays. Often music and dancing take it over. Is there another one? Is this still going on? Crystal City. Rave in the Cave. Rave in the Cave. Rave in the cave. Why is the internet eating ass? Oh, it's a new owner. Yeah, it's sort of like, it was probably like really awesome back in the day, and then it probably got all blown up and a bunch of people found out about it. Now it's this whole fucking bullshit, corporatized, bunch of rules, bullshit rules. Well, here's where I guess this is something here. Nearest hotels, visitor information. What's the location though? Like, I want to see the cave where the rave is. Let's see what's going on. Instaham. So it's like a whole brand name now. They just go around setting up shows or something. It's pretty sick. Let's go, drum and bass. This is in Phoenix. So they must just go and invade caves now. Well, that's cool. It always gets overhyped and then shit goes down the toilet. Where were we? Valentina Guysack said that she was a bit worried when her 21-year-old daughter Margarita said she was planning to attend the festival. I suspected there may be drugs and alcohol, but my daughter told me, "Don't worry, I'm just there to dance and have fun." Probably not the same as the one I went to. Buddy was the lighting technician. Probably right. Rave in the Cave seems like a very obvious rhyme scheme to sell it, right? As the sun rose on Saturday, the party was still in full swing when several small black dots appeared in the sky, caught on one partygoer's phone. As the dots came closer, it became clear that they were motorized paragliders approaching from the direction of the Gaza in the west. And I wish they would show the actual fucking paragliders because it's fucking crazy. And look at these kids. They have no idea what's about to happen. No fucking clue. It's horrible. The beat of the music became confused with gunfire as Palestinian militants stormed the festival. A siren went off, warning of incoming rockets, followed by gunshots. Some attendees tried to raise the alarm while others remained oblivious. One festival goer said that at first the rocket noise sounded like it was part of the music. Then he and his friends felt the bullets flying around us, he told Israel's Channel 12. Another traveler, Ortel, said suddenly out of nowhere they come inside with gunfire, opening fire in every direction. 50 terrorists arrived in vans dressed as in military uniforms. In panic, people tried to flee, kicking up the desert sand to reach their cars, but said Ortel, there were vehicles full of gunmen shooting at the cars. They fired burst, and we reached a point where everyone stopped their vehicle and started running. Ortel said she hid in the bush as they just started spraying people. I saw masses of wounded people thrown around, and I'm trying to understand what's going on. Chen Misachi told Israel's Ynet news website, it started at 7 in the morning when the rocket fire from the sky began. We started shouting code red to everyone. The warning used by Israelis for incoming rocket attacks from Gaza. There were several firing points. We ran from one direction to another. Gunmen chased fleeing revelers across the desert, shooting and snatching people. And you can see that here. There's children running out of cars. They're just in the open desert, and they're just doing pot shots of people. And yeah, see, you can see kids fucking, and these are young people just trying to have a good time. Ms. Rachi said many fell and were injured from terrorist fire. Somehow we managed to escape the line of fire. Another survivor, Liren, said people were attacked as they tried to escape through an exit at the site. It happened in an instant. The terrorists arrived on the right side of the road and then got out of a large white vehicle, a type of van. They shot from close range. It was terrible. Liran said she got into a car, and as we started to drive like crazy. Gili Yasovich, so we're getting it, right? We're getting what's happening here. People are hidden. They're hiding from people behind these walls, hoping that no one finds them, which they do find them. Hostages taken. Video has circulated showing young Israelis being driven and marched away by Palestinian militants. One clip shows a distraught young woman being driven on a motorcycle between two militants, pleading with her arms outstretched. Nearby, a young man is marched away by a gunman. And that's the situation there. A later video appeared to show Argmani being held captive in a room with a tiled floor, sipping from a bottle of water. Another video appeared to show a partygoer reported to be Shani Luke, a 23-year-old German-Israeli dual national, being paraded through the streets of Gaza. CNN said it verified a video showing her being driven in a truck guarded by a militant carrying a rocket-propelled grenade while another held her by the hair. Late on Sunday, the Israeli rescue service Zaka said it had retrieved hundreds of bodies from the festival site. Photographs and videos showed burnt-out cars and bodies on the ground. The Israeli authorities said about 260 people had been killed, and many were still missing. And they're saying about over 100 hostages were taken in this attack. So, yeah. It's pretty fucking nuts, man. So U2 pays tribute to those killed in the Israel Music Festival, and they released a video from their latest concert. I like U2. I know they're just getting a lot of shit, and Bono is kind of a chode, but I fucking like U2, okay? I don't give a fuck. They have some good songs. So in response to this, U2, they ended up changing some lyrics for one of their most popular songs called Pride. In the name of love. In the name of love. U2 paid tribute in song on Sunday to those killed by Gaza militants at a music festival in southern Israel. During their performance at the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada, Bono dedicated their song Pride in the Name of Love to hundreds killed in the attack at the Nova Festival held outside of Riyadh. In the light of what's happening in Israel and Gaza, a song about nonviolence seems somewhat ridiculous, even laughable. Let's just watch the video. Where's the video at? You know, I got it on my Instagram, so fuck them. They didn't even have the video. What a bunch of douches. So I put it up.
In Israel and Gaza, a song about nonviolence seems somewhat ridiculous, even laughable, but our prayers have always been for peace and for non-violence. So
it's a good song too.
And our anger, you know what that's pointed to. So sing with us. And those beautiful kids at that music festival.
That's amazing. They didn't even have to cue him.
Early morning,
So this is the changed
October
lyrics.
7th, as the sun is rising in the desert sky. Stars of David, they took your life, but they could not take your pride. Could not take your pride.
Sounds so good.
Could not take your pride. Could not take in the name of love. In the light of
So, you know, I think that's nice. I'm a sap. That's fucking beautiful. Especially it's one of their most popular songs that people know them by. Israelis official counted at least 260 bodies. Yeah, we got that. Some survivors are among more than 100 hostages that the militant group Hamas claims to be holding in Gaza, according to friends and family members who have seen them in videos shared on social platforms. It was a festival of music and peace, Bono told the audience. A festival of music and peace. Can you imagine? It's horrible. Bono changed some of the lyrics of the song to reflect the tragedy, which he said early morning, October 7th. The sun is rising in the sky, desert sky. Stars of David, they took your life, but they could not take your pride, which is, I mean, those are good lines, man. Those are solid lines, especially for last minute sort of being written down, which Bono is a good lyricist. He's a great lyricist. Pride in the Name of Love originally paid tribute to Martin Luther King and referenced his assassination on April 4th, 1968 at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Sunday's performance of Pride was preceded by I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. It was followed by MLK, according to the video shared by concert goers on social media. So very, very nice tribute. And Bono's always been really outspoken in regards to human rights violations and stuff. So you gotta give it up to him. He's kind of a doucher, but you know, maybe his heart's in the right place. I guess I don't know. Seems like he really cares about some shit that's going on. So, fucking, you know, go Bono. We appreciate Bono. So, as we sort of move to a wider spectrum of what's going on. There's been reports of cyber attacks. Now, this, again, fog of war, this could be propaganda. Obviously, propaganda is a real thing, which, you know, we know that propaganda is a real thing. It was confirmed by the Twitter files where they revealed that they basically are, and fucking Mark Zuck, the Zuck himself has admitted that the FBI has been in contact with him and what they want him to allow on his platform and what they don't, what kind of information, especially when it came to subjects that that would diminish the names of high-ranking officials in the Democratic Party, such as Joe Byron and the laptop, the Hunter Biden laptop, and a lot of editing and censoring of COVID misinformation. So I don't know. We gotta sort of take all this with a grain of salt, and who knows. It does seem that Russia had some shit going on within Israel as well. Cyber attacks targeting Israel are on the rise from after Hamas attack. Russian-linked outfits take credit for attacking websites. So, what is this? Get the fuck out of here. What is going on? You're not going to stop me, bitch. We got to report the news. Oh. Okay, hooker. Fuck you then. I guess we'll go with Kiev Post. I don't trust Kiev Post. I guess Cyber News. Page not found. What the fuck is going on? Putin is a Nazi. I knew it. You knew it! What is this? What is going on here? Yeah, get out of here. name of love. Yeah, in the name of love. Hamas launched an unprecedented attack on Israel out of Gaza. Yes, we know. In addition to the state-sponsored attacks that have likely ramped up their cyber efforts behind the scenes, known hacktivist groups supporting both sides have intensified their attacks. According to the timeline created by cybersecurity consultant OSINT enthusiast Julian Botham, the first hacktivist attacks were launched against Israel by anonymous Sudan less than 1 hour after the first rockets were fired by Hamas. The group targeted emergency warning systems, claiming to have taken down alerting applications in Israel. The Jerusalem Post, the largest English language daily newspaper in Israel, was also targeted by anonymous Sudan. A pro-Hamas group called Cyber Avengers targeted the Israel Independent System Operator Noga, a power grid organization claiming to have compromised its network and shut down its websites. The group also targeted the Israel Electric Corporation, the largest supplier of electrical power in Israel and Palestinian territories, as well as power plant. The notorious pro-Russian group Killnet has launched attacks against Israel's government website. So it's Killnet that is the Russian-linked activist or hacktivist group. So you can see what's going on here, right? Like they're all sort of in cahoots. They're all trying to sort of take down the West. And Israel is the Middle East, but it is a Western culture as well as a Middle Eastern culture. So especially with the amount of Jews, American Jews, and Jews from all over the world who live in Israel. So it's not just Middle Eastern Jews; it's people, it's Jews from all over the world, and that bring Western culture into that area. So again, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, we're sort of kicking off World War III here. A Palestinian hacker group named Ghosts of Palestine has invited hackers from around the world to attack private and public infrastructures in Israel and the United States. A group called Libyan Ghost has started defacing small Israeli websites in support of Hamas. In most cases, these hacktivists have used distributed denial of service attacks, DDoS attacks, to cause disruption. Some of them claim, okay, and then DDoS, that's where they just overwork the server, where they just, it's like a bunch of people use it all at once, so the whole system just shuts down. I believe that's what it is. I know. Moving Dutchman, maybe you can correct us if not. I gotta go. Gonna make some bacon on the Blackstone. All right, natives, thank you so much for dropping through. I appreciate you, my brother. Enjoy your bacon, buddy. For instance, claims by Iran linked and other. Yes, the sluts are back, baby. Let's see. Some of them claim to have caused significant disruptions to their targets, but it's not uncommon for hacktivists to exaggerate their claims. For instance, claims by Iran linked and other hackers that they have launched a cyber attack on Israel's Iron Dome air defense system are likely exaggerated. On the other hand, groups like Killnet and Anonymous Sudan, both tied to Russia, have been known to launch highly disruptive attacks. In the past, they've targeted major companies such as Microsoft, X, or Twitter, and Telegram with massive DDoS attacks. On the other side, a pro-Israel group called ThreatSec claims to have compromised the infrastructure of Gaza-based ISP AlphaNet. So lots of fucking shit going on. And I mean, this is the 21st century way we commit, the way we do war now, right? And even when you think about election, what is that called? Election interference. There are Russians did, in fact, have people. They had these bot farms, right, where they had people posting. They would start a meme page on Facebook and then slowly turn it into a like a pro BLM, and then that same bot farm, if bot farm is the right term for it, I forgot what that was called, but they would also start like a anti BLM, and they would sort of build up their followers through memes, and then they would start slowly integrating a message of pro or anti, and we're just using BLM because this actually happened in Texas, where they had a rally of BLM and anti BLMers having a protest at the same time in the same general vicinity, and chaos ensued. It's sort of a way to sow chaos within different cultures and countries, and that's what that has happened. So this is the new way of sort of waging war on each other, and it's only a matter of time that our infrastructure is hacked. And what we have 3 grids here in America, and they're all poorly ran and operated. Our infrastructure here is crumbling because people want to just kick the can down the road for someone else to handle it, because they don't want to spend the money to fix and make our infrastructure something worth a shit. And so we have the East, West, and then in Texas just has their own fucking grid, which their grid is falling apart too. Their grid failed them, right? A couple years ago when winter hit them, people were snowed in. Their power grid went down. People didn't have heat. They weren't prepared for the shit. People were in their garages with the car running to try to stay warm, and people were like multiple people were dying in their garage with the car running because they didn't have to deal with that shit in Texas. Sometimes it snows and ice in Texas, which is generally a big desert of heat and swamp ass. Which I have to do. I love Texas. It's a pretty awesome place. So, we're sowing the seeds of a world war. I'm not trying to be an alarmist here, because I always have hope that we can figure something out before it gets that far. But the war hawks are out right now, especially here in America. We are very pro-war because, again, we are sort of captured by corporate interest and the industrial war machine. So it's not looking good. It's not looking good, friends. Okay, and then we also have this before we sort of go into, because we're gonna. I do want to watch the Ben Shapiro thing, and he does a really good job of bringing up videos and explaining what's going on. Although he is definitely slanted, and then I kind of want to go and look into the other side of shit, because here in America, in the United States, and across the country, we've had pro-Palestine protest, and people are just real happy about this, that women are being raped and children being murdered in their home, families being just gunned down in their homes, by any means necessary. It's not great. It's not a good look, but this is sort of what's going on right now here in America and all over the world, really. Russia seeks to frame Ukraine. So here again, Russia seeks to frame Ukraine with trophy Western weapons in Gaza. So again, this is a very suspect headline. It seems like propaganda, but because Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries, right? Like one of the worst countries for human trafficking. And now all of a sudden they're our best friends, and they're just glorious, and they're righteous, and the comedian turned fucking president is our best friend who speaks at the Oscars, who gets welcomed on the red carpet. He's on the cover of Time magazine. He's all of a sudden he's the prince of the world. So is there corruption within Ukraine with mishandling of U.S. funds? Yeah, there's been several people who've been fired or dismissed from their position for, pocketing the money or or are they selling our weapons to other countries? I don't know. This says Russia is, but let's read it anyways and kind of get into what's going on. Russia has handed over Western weaponry captured from Ukrainian fighters to Hamas militants fighting in southern Israel and the Gaza Strip, Ukraine's military intelligence agency says. Ukraine said it. The Russian army has given over trophy weapons made by the United States and the European countries, taken from Kiev's fighters over the course of 20-month-old war, Ukraine's GER agency said in a statement on Monday. Moscow would then claim the Ukrainian military is selling such Western-donated weapons to Hamas on a regular basis as part of a false flag operation, the GER added. What is GER? Is that like their CIA over there? GER, Ukraine. Defense Intelligence of Ukraine. Yeah, so it's sort of like our DOJ here, maybe? Oh, no, it's our CIA. It's like, so it's the CIA of Ukraine. Okay. So, of course, Ukraine would say that, right? If you got caught selling weapons that were donated, if you got caught selling them, I don't see it outside the realm of possibility that you have a corrupt politician who got their hands on some extra weapons because we're just sending that shit over like it's candy. And I could definitely see the case where they're like, fuck it, let's just sell it to Hamas and make some extra money, bitches. You know, I could see that happening. I can also see Russians doing that shit too. Fog of war. We have to question everything that we read. We have to question it and keep questioning it because we don't know what's real right now. It's a really fucked up time for information. Okay, so Newsweek reached out to the Russian Defense Ministry for a comment via email. Yeah, I'm sure they reached out like 10 minutes before they published this fucking article. In mid-June, Newsweek reported that Israel's military was concerned about the possibility that U.S. and Western-made weapons flooding into Ukraine could end up in the hands of Israeli enemies in the Middle East. We are very worried that some of these capabilities are going to fall to Hezbollah and Hamas's hands. A high-ranking Israeli commander told Newsweek on condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the topic. The alleged plan would look to discredit Ukraine's military and stem the tide of military aids from Kiev's Western supporters, the GER says. Ukraine relies heavily on Western donations of military aid to sustain its war effort against the Kremlin's forces. Ukrainian intelligence suggests that U.S.-made infantry equipment has made it into Hamas's possession, whatever that guy is, this guy, Kraev, of the Kiev-based Ukrainian think tank Prism, told Newsweek. It's a think tank? Okay. On Saturday, the Institute for the Study of War suggested that the Kremlin was already using Hamas attacks as a weapon to pull away Western attention from Ukraine and erode support for Ukraine. Seems a little redundant. Former Russian president and current deputy chair of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, said over the weekend that the U.S. had been helping the neo-Nazis rather than focusing on finding the Palestinian-Israeli settlement. The Kremlin has said its full-scale invasion of Ukraine is a special military operation to denazify the government in Kyiv, which has been rejected by Ukraine and the international community. These suggest, so yeah, everyone's just like, nah, the Nazis don't run the show over there. Although there are Nazis that were armed. Oh, and by the way, they also, Canada, how they were, they were celebrating a Ukrainian officer who fought the Russians in Ukraine back in World War II, who actually was fighting the Russians, but for the Nazis. So there you go. Canada uplifts Nazis, and there are actual Nazis, or at least were Nazis. there was Nazis. What was the name of that group? I can't remember the name of the group. Yeah. Anyways, we've looked into it before. These suggestions from the Kremlin target Western audiences to drive a wedge in military support for Ukraine, which there already is. There's a lot of people here, including myself, that don't think that we should be involved in such a thing. However, there is currently no conclusive evidence that Russia has been directly involved in the conflict. Now it's in its third day. I like that they added this, right? They added this right at the end of the article. Like, however, there is currently no conclusive evidence that Russia has been directly involved in the conflict now in its third day, which we have just confirmed that they probably were, or at least Kremlin-linked hacktivists were involved with taking down government websites, and there's no real evidence of this, of Russia actually being behind the selling of American weapons to Hamas. So Hamas is ending up with our weapons. Newsweek writes this whole article and then saves for the end. However, there's no conclusive evidence. We're just going off of what these countries are saying. So again, question everything we read. It's difficult to imagine that Russia participated in the planning of the attack. Okay, so they didn't plan the attack, maybe. The crisis group think tank senior Russian analyst previously told Newsweek, of course, we live in a world where we can't exclude anything, but I haven't seen any evidence. Hamas has been stockpiling weapons for some time and likely has a different set of requirements for its military equipment compared to Russia for Moscow's operation in Ukraine. According to Fabian Hinz, research fellow for the Defense and Military Analysis at the Institute of Strategic Studies think tank. There you go. That's what's happening over there. So let's move into watching some of Ben Shapiro, which I know is not everyone's favorite commentator. But again, I think if we're going to get a Jewish perspective on this situation, I think Ben Shapiro is probably one of the best resources to have on the subject. So let's check out some of this. Now, this is going to involve some terrible imagery. So if you're not okay with this, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on Rumble, if you're listening to it, then you don't have to see it. But there are some terrible images. We might skip past them, but I'll let you guys know at least before they come on what's happening. But it is. I do agree with Ben Shapiro when he says it's important for people to see what kind of horror is going on over there. And it's important for people to understand the evils of humanity. And so let's go in.
It was being disseminated. We'd heard rumors. We knew some of what was going on. And then we came back online last night.
So this is him talking about he left Israel Friday and got back in, I believe, Saturday morning. His whole family was there. So they left right before the attack on Israel.
And here's what we came back to. Over the course of the weekend, 800 to 1,000 terrorists entered Israel through approximately 80 gaps in the fence, in the security border that was supposed to be secure. There can be a lot of questions to be asked about the intelligence failures here, about the technical failures here. And then proceeded to attack 20 communities and 11 Israeli Defense Force bases, IDF bases. At least 800 people are dead. Several thousand have been wounded. For those who are claiming that this is because of Israel's treatment of Gaza, just recognize Israel has no presence in the Gaza Strip. Israel abandoned the Gaza Strip in 2005 under the so-called disengagement plan. Hamas, a terrorist group established in 1987, 1988 with the express purpose of destroying the state of Israel and killing Jews globally. Hamas was elected to lead the Gaza Strip in 2006. They have ruled continuously since 2007. They've initiated multiple conflicts over the course of that time. In 2006, 2008, 2011, 2018, they initiated large wars in 2008, 2012, 2014, and 2021. And the general Israeli security perspective was keep them hemmed in. Keep that wall. Make sure they don't breach that border. Every so often, there'd be barrage of rocket fire, use Iron Dome to shoot down those rockets.
And if you guys don't know what the Iron Dome is, it's a very sophisticated system, which is anti-ballistic. Is that what that's called? Anti-ballistic technology, where they're sending up missiles to blow up missiles. out of the sky. So you'll see these images where they'll see the missiles coming in, and then you'll see another missile going up, and it just seeks them out, blows them up in the sky to reduce casualties within the Israeli borders.
And essentially relegate your own population to living in bunkers underground for several weeks every year while Hamas fires rockets at them. But so long as the casualties are minimized, just continue to live. And then the weekend. So the timeline of the weekend was essentially that about 6:30 a.m. local time, the Hamas terrorists began firing a barrage of rocket fire from Gaza into Israel, hitting several cities ranging from Tel Aviv, which is basically located in the center coast of Israel, down to Rehovot and Gadara and Ashkelon. Those are areas that are slightly closer. Ashkelon is pretty close to the Gaza Strip. For those who don't know the geography of the State of Israel looks like kind of a wedge. The Gaza Strip is at the corner of that wedge. If you imagine Israel sort of an elongated diamond, it's at the lower left-hand side of that elongated diamond. It's a fairly small area, hosts about 2 million Palestinian Arabs. And the Gaza Strip, as I say, has been under the complete and utter control of Hamas since 2007. Israel has no presence in the Gaza Strip. It does not control what goes on inside the Gaza Strip. It doesn't allow weapons to flow inside the Gaza Strip, but it has been providing free electricity and water to the Gaza Strip for literally decades.
So there is another side of that story that they have not been supplying water and electricity to the Gaza Strip, and he even says that Israel does not allow weapons to come in through the Gaza Strip. So to say there's no presence of Israel in the Gaza Strip, I think, is somewhat of a fallacy. Now, it's hard to confirm whether or not they're, starving these people from water and electricity. It's hard to say, right? There's no hard evidence, but there is a lot of people who say that's what's going on. And, respectable organizations who support that, which we'll try to get to.
They started firing at about 6:35 a.m. The sirens all went off. The people rushed underground, and it turns out that this was all a distraction technique. It's a highly sophisticated operation planned and greenlit, apparently by the Iranian government. The Iranian government, on a geopolitical level, is terrified that Israel is about to make peace with Saudi Arabia, and that peace is going to break out across the region, providing a regional counterbalance to the worst terror state in modern history, the Iranian terror state, which has spread its tentacles of evil across Iraq, across Syria, across Lebanon, into Yemen, into the Gaza Strip. At about 7:40 a.m., the Hamas terrorists began blowing up parts of the border fence. This border fence was supposed to be technologically sophisticated. It was a so-called touch fence, which means that if there were ladders that were stacked on the fence, then they would go off and then everybody would be alerted. But apparently there was a simultaneous attack, a cyber attack on the border fence, which meant that it was not functioning properly. Apparently about 80 places in the wall were breached. They rushed through. They proceeded to blow up and murder a bunch of Jews in these IDF bases. And then they proceeded into Israeli border towns. And they went house to house, murdering people in their homes, kidnapping children, raping and kidnapping women, murdering them, house to house. Understand, this is the worst disaster for the Jews since the Holocaust. It is worse than the 1973 Yom Kippur War. That was a military operation designed at eviscerating Israel, but at least it was a territorial military attempting to take on another territorial military. These are terrorists who have no actual military agenda. Their only agenda is to murder as many Jews as possible.
I think they do have agenda. It does seem like they do have an agenda, is to create terror. And I think that terrorism is such a cowardly way of fighting war. War in general is just a horrible, horrible concept, but it is a part of humanity, always has been, and probably always will be, as long as man wants to pursue power, money, influence. It's just what's going to happen. So, anyways.
Because anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Because the destruction of the state of Israel is coincident with the murder of as many Jews as possible, with more Jewish blood spilled, with the murder of infants.
And, the whole birth of Israel was basically taking land and saying, "Hey, here you go, Jewish folks, come and live here." And it ended up, getting passed by the UN, and after World War II, and the Arab nations didn't like that, which I can see why. If all of a sudden, half the world was like, "Listen, we're gonna just go ahead and take your property, and we're gonna give it to people that you don't agree with, and you guys get to fight over the Holy Land because the Jewish folks and the Muslims both see this as the Holy Land. So hey, fuck you." And with the might of the United States, especially after World War II, United States really became a powerhouse in the world. That's when we really became a world power, was in World War II. So you have people who are you have a whole group of Arab nations who were happy about this, but because America has the swinging dick, they sort of have to conform or be destroyed, I suppose. That's what would happen. I'm not sure. Again, cursory knowledge. Anybody correct me if you're listening to this in the audio. Email the show, wespeakenglishgood@gmail.com, if you have any corrections you guys want to make. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment, please. Educate us. I want to know. Educate me.
These people were shooting women. They were shooting babies. This is what they do. They proceeded to Sderot, which is an area near the Gaza border, which has been hit with thousands of rockets over the years. They shot at a civilian car. They then opened fire on a variety of vehicles, shooting as many people as humanitarian end goal here.
So
the only end goal was the murder of as many Jews as possible. That is all.
Skip forward a little.
So this began by Hamas brigade members invading a military post. Here's some video of Hamas brigade members invading a military post. This was put out by Hamas itself. The vast majority of this video was not put out by the Israelis. It was put out by Hamas bragging about their evil and their human rights violation. Here is the beginning of the military operation that they performed. This is where they're actually breaking through the wall, and you're going to see them invading a military post and shooting as many people as possible, obviously. Credit here to Memory TV, which is a... They're shouting,
broke through the
obviously,
wall
as
here.
they break through the security barrier. It's a very tall cement barrier. Breaking through, they blew it up, and now they cut through an iron fence, and they rushed an Israeli military base. It was a short-staffed base because it was a Jewish holiday. They always attack on, remember, for Muslims, for radical Muslims, it is obviously a violation of religion for anyone to do anything during Ramadan, but any Jewish holiday is an excuse for terrorists to murder as many Jews as possible. Walked into a military base and started murdering as many human beings as possible. This is just more video of them doing just that. And then they proceeded into Israeli towns. Because again, this was not about... They're saying these are their Jeeps, these are their Hummer Jeeps. They then proceeded into civilian towns. So again, there were simultaneous attacks on multiple civilian towns, as well as a massive dance festival. We'll get to the massive dance festival in a second because that was the chief place of death. It was, again, this is not a right-left issue. This is not a political...
And so I want to get those pictures of paragliders, because these videos of the paragliders coming in at the music festival is crazy, dude. It's fucking nuts. But I haven't... See, you can see them coming in there, but there's actually, you can see them landing in... And that ain't shit. That ain't what we're looking for. What is this? To see them sort of landing, it's fucking nuts. Again, this is more of the same footage. Everybody got the same reel, I guess. Yeah, I saw this girl talking this morning. I wish I could see the pair. Oh, here they are. Look at this shit. It's just crazy. Look at it. They got like a little fan that goes, starting their little fucking lame ass little fans and fucking flying up into the sky. Look at it. It's like little planes. Or not planes, but like literally fucking, they're just. Hold on. Look at, they have machine guns mounted on these sons of bitches, and they just flew into these areas and just started murdering people. It started over. What happened? So you can see like how this worked. They were on these little buggies with a fan connected to the back, and they're hooked up to a parachute, and they just sort of flew in. It seems they want everything. It seems they want everything, but erase all Jews. Yeah, erasing. See, nobody's entire fucking group of people should be wiped out because you don't agree with their religion. But there does seem to be some sort of international responsibility on this. I think that the international community has a little responsibility when they're letting Israel sort of occupy land that wasn't a part of the original treaty and the original agreement. That's when things start getting, a little wonky, and that shit should have been shut down, and maybe less people would have to die. But again, they're fighting over the same holy land, and it's the same God, but just a little bit different way of worshiping. And this is why religion is such a shitty subject for me, because it just causes so many terrible skirmishes and wars and just horror towards people. So it's wild. It's wild out there. Anyways, coming back to Ben Shapapo. Now, we're not going to watch the whole hour and a half of this, but but there are some videos they sort of have
political issue
here.
in Israel or anywhere else. These were largely secular Jews at a rave, at an EDM rave, what they called a peace rave, somewhat near the Gaza border. We'll get to that momentarily, but entire family murdered. You can see these are women on the floor, the men on the floor.
All right, so if you're weak stomach, look away. If you're watching this on video, if you guys are watching this on the stream, it's about to get gross. It's about to, I mean, like gross and horrible, and like not. It's just not good.
Generally speaking, what you end up with is words that there are no words for this sort of evil. There are no words for it. You can't describe. It's not animalistic, because animals would not treat each other this way. It's not animal. It's not monstrous, because there are no monsters. There are only human beings. They're only some of the most demonic, evil pieces of human excrement ever to walk the planet. That's what Hamas is. Here is a video of an entire family murder.
Right here,
you can
if
see
you
these are
don't
women
want
on
to
the
see
floor,
this, don't
men on
look
the
at
floor.
this.
This is Hamas putting out this video. Again, this is not the Israelis.
It's horrible.
Hamas is putting out this video. There's an entire
fucking
family in their
terrible,
home.
man.
They've been gunned down and murdered. And they're just shooting people who are already dead on the floor.
Fucking terrible.
There's video of a father who's attempting to help his family escape from the top story of his home in one of these villages. You can see in the corner of this video, for those who can't watch,
Yeah, this is up here.
he's helping his family
top
escape. You can
there.
see these are women and children who are escaping the top window here, trying to get out. Terrorists are in their home. Imagine for a second terrorists were in your home and you're trying to help your family escape. So they're attempting to get out. And the last person out is going to be the father here, but he's not going to get out. He's going to be murdered. He's going to be shot and he's going to be killed in this video. And people were sending texts throughout this day to friends and family members telling them that they were about to be murdered, and then those would be the last texts. You can see this this father has been shot, and he dies in the window here.
Ugh.
The
Terrible.
Hamas put out video of entire families being murdered on the roads. They literally strafed cars filled with women, children, entire families. These are videos that were taken in the aftermath. These are,
Jesus.
you can see these are people strewn on the ground. Entire families. You can see here just minivans filled with the dead. it did not matter. Just as in the Bible it describes Amalek as preying on the weak and the elderly. That this is what they do. This is a picture of a grandmother who was murdered. She was murdered by Hamas terrorists. The young woman in the picture found out that her grandmother had been murdered when she saw a video that Hamas had posted on her grandmother's Facebook page of her being murdered. This is a picture of a couple, Itai and Hadas Berdichevsky. They're both 30. They had 10-month-old twins. 10-month-old twins. Their village, which is called Kfar Gaza, which is a kibbutz in southern Israel. A kibbutz is sort of a commune in southern Israel. They shielded their babies with their lives. The babies were next to their dead parents for 12 to 14 hours before they were rescued. But Hamas didn't stop there, of course. They proceeded to mutilate as many bodies as they could find. This is, again, all this video is disturbing. This, by the way, is a Thai worker who's mutilated, murdered and mutilated. 9 American citizens, by the way, are dead, at the very least. Thai citizens are dead. German citizens are dead. Wide variety. This is the worst terrorist attack.
This is terrible
on the planet since
we're going to skip that
cycle of violence.
Just the description of what that video was. We're just going to skip it. I just can't watch that again. It's just a man who was murdered, and then they're desecrating the body by taking a hoe, like a shovel hoe, like something you hoe your garden with, and fucking decapitating him. And they show that on the video, which I don't want to see again. I mean, I know we watched some terrible things, but that I can't.
Or maybe not
deal with that.
It's not the only mutilation of body video. Dead soldiers had their bodies mutilated, kicked in the face, beheaded. This is more video from Hamas.
Terrible. This is tough, man.
This is them raiding the bodies of the dead, taking their ammunition, and then finding the dead bodies, the corpses of soldiers they've killed, and kicking them in the face, and mutilating them, stabbing them. So there's a massive music festival. There's an eyewitness account of that festival that's been printed over a tablet magazine. This is according to Leo.
I understand, Mighty Mighty. It's not religion. It's people that cause war. Right, but they're basing their attacks on what they believe religiously. I'm not saying religion shouldn't exist. I'm just saying that it leads to a lot of horrible stuff. And I understand what you're saying, that people interpret their doctrine, their religious doctrine, on however they feel. And they're the ones who sort of molest the ideas and turn it into evil doing. So I get what you're saying, but it's still rooted in their belief system.
Leo Leibowitz writing, he says, I've spent the last 12 hours speaking to Israelis who are at the Supernova Music Festival. Their testimonies, as you would imagine, are very emotional. At least one broke down mid-conversation and wasn't able to continue his recollection. The attack on the festival outside of Re'im began around 7 a.m. The party was at its peak by then, which meant that by then most people were inebriated. At first, partygoers heard a loud explosion, which they took to be another sporadic rocket attack on southern Israel. The explosions grew louder and constant, kept going for about 5 minutes. The music stopped. The police protecting the 4,000 or 5,000 ravers began pushing everyone to leave. By then, terrorists were approaching in pickup trucks bearing Hamas military markings. Shooting began. Many were executed on the spot. 260 bodies were found so far on the site of the rave. It's now probably in excess of 300. Many of the young men and women started running.
Missile strikes,
as they were attempting to escape. Again, that's not the worst part. Hamas has now taken in excess of 150 hostages. When they went into towns, they stole babies. They stole literal babies. They stole women. This is Hamas taking a woman hostage and shoving her into the back of a vehicle and driving her back into Gaza, where giant crowds of people cheering like animals. This woman has...
And you can see the blood on her pants down here. And he's going to say what happened.
Obviously been raped multiple times. She's bleeding through her pants. She's been forced into the car. Been viciously raped. You would imagine sodomized from the amount of damage that's been done there. This is cheering, honking their horns. Allahu Akbar, they're shouting in the video. Just stuffing women into the back of trucks. And if you're wondering what happens to the women they do this to, here is the here is, we'll get in a second to the worst video of the day. Here more women who have been held hostage, entire rooms filled with women who have been held hostage, who will be turned into rape victims and sex slaves, presumably. Entire lines of women who have been kidnapped. And Hamas releasing this video. This is Hamas doing this because they're under the mistaken impression that this is going to break the will of the Jews, of the Israelis. They are sorely mistaken. They are sorely, sorely mistaken. The wrath of God that they've just brought upon themselves. This is by far the and I'm sorry to make you watch this, but I'm not sorry that but I'm not sorry because frankly, again, we all have to watch this. This is what evil looks like. It's what evil looks like. It's what evil looks like. It's what evil looks like. This is
And you can see he's like definitely distraught over this.
This is the body of a woman.
This is a German.
Her name is Shani Luke. We know her name. She's a German citizen. She's at the rave. This is a video of her mutilated body on the back of a truck. You can see that her legs are bent in unnatural positions
They're
because
just
she's dead.
sitting on her.
They are cheering Allahu Akbar in a massive crowd in Gaza over her mostly naked body. She has been mutilated. She has clearly been murdered. This is who these people are. I'm using the word people as loosely as humanly possible. More hostage videos of women. More hostage. Look at how many women they've taken captive. The goal here is to paralyze the state of Israel, to stop them from doing what must be done to clear Gaza of Hamas and destroy it utterly and completely, to eviscerate it, to kill its leadership. I should mention at this point that every ounce of blood in Gaza is on Hamas. Every ounce of blood in Gaza. Because not only do they seek to murder Israeli civilians, take women and children hostage. We haven't gotten to the children yet. I'll get to the children. But they hide behind their own civilians. They've been doing this for years. There's literal video that I've played on the show before of Israel calling up buildings and telling them to get out because civilians are in there. And Hamas saying, we want the civilians to be there. There's a reason that they put their military headquarters under hospitals, because they want Israel to retaliate and then to kill civilians by hiding behind civilians. Hiding behind civilians is a war crime. Every ounce of blood that is shed here is on Hamas. Every ounce of blood, Palestinian and Israeli, is on Hamas. Okay, more hostage videos, and then we'll get to the children.
So they're taking people
Pulling an Israeli
out of a
soldier out of
tank.
the tank. Hostage video of an Israeli child. This kid can't be more than 5 or 6 years old. He's being taunted by Palestinian children. They're hitting him with sticks and telling him to say Ima, Ima. Ima means mother, means mom in Hebrew. Taunting him, grabbing him by the head. These are other children. Other children are mocking this child whose parents are undoubtedly dead, hitting him with sticks and telling him to say Ima. These are Nazis.
Fuck, dude. But again, there's reports of Israel doing this to Palestinians as well. Before this incident even. So, you know, I'm not saying that makes it right. I think this is a horrible situation. But you can see how people can only take so much shit before they retaliate. And this is retaliation in a lot of people's eyes. This is retaliation. I think this is just horrible terrorist cowardice bullshit. Taking children and raping women, it's bullshit.
These are Nazis. These are Nazis. Anybody who's called anyone a Nazi online, that's what Nazism looks like. When I say almost, I mean it really is unwatchable. But again, look evil in its message. This is another video. This is Hamas thanking Iran. We'll get to that in a moment because the geopolitical ramifications of this situation are quite grave.
So these guys are all happy
watching Al
about
Jazeera,
this.
watching the images on Al Jazeera. You can hear them celebrating.
They're smiling. in
Smiling
suits.
broadly. These are the leaders of Hamas, every one of whom should be put in an early grave as soon as humanly possible. You want to know what evil looks like? It looks like men in business suits, in fancy business suits in Qatar, bowing their heads in thanks to God at the rape of women and the murder of children. That's what it looks like right there. That's what it looks like. And the suit doesn't make you any less of a terrorist. Who have supported us generously with money, arms, and other means. Administration is attempting to avoid its own, provided hundreds of millions of dollars to various Palestinian groups ranging from Palestinian Authority to Hamas itself. Billions of dollars to the Iranian regime that sponsored this, as we'll get into in just a little while. Here was Hamas leadership thanking Iran for all of this, thanking them for their help.
Thanks to all the individuals, groups, and countries.
This person who's masked, of course, says thanks to all these individuals, groups, and countries, particularly the Islamic Republic of Iran, who have supported us generously with money, arms, and other means, providing us with the missiles that have been battering the Zionist strongholds during past confrontations. With the occupiers, they've also supported us with anti-tank missiles, which, by the grace of God and the faith of our fighters, shattered the myth of the Zionist superiority. And that really was the goal here, obviously. The goal here was to shatter the notion of Israeli military invincibility by murdering as many civilians as humanly possible. Well, these people are about to find out the hard way exactly what it means to around and find out.
Oh,
Hamas's leader, Ismail Haniyeh, has now called on other Arabs to join and has called on Israel to leave the land. You saw him earlier bowing down in thanks to Allah for the gift of murdered Jews. Here he was suggesting the real purpose. The real purpose is not a territorial settlement. The real purpose is not control of the Gaza Strip. Hamas has been in control of the Gaza Strip since 2006. Here he is calling on all Jews to leave the land.
أبناء شعبنا الفلسطيني أبناء أمتنا العربية والإسلامية.
I say to the sons of our Palestinian people and Arab and Islamic nation, today you are on the verge of a great triumph and a manifest victory. What happened today reveals the fragility of this enemy. This enemy suffered defeat today. A political, military, intelligence, security, and moral defeat, says this evil piece of human debris. Inshallah, we will crown all this with a resounding defeat. The enemy will leave our land, our Jerusalem, our Al-Aqsa Mosque, that would be the Temple Mount, and we will liberate our prisoners. Remember, the goal here is not merely to liberate. By liberate, we mean, have these monsters take over more territory, which, as it turns out, by the way, giving territory to some of the world's most evil people is a horrible idea. I know that there have been those who have been convinced in their sophistication that giving territory to the world's most evil people is actually a wonderful idea and that it's the best way to promote world peace. As it turns out, it's the best way to promote rape of women, murder of children, kidnapping of babies. That's what it turns out. Their goals are very clear. Meanwhile, their secondary goal here is to have Israel kill as many Palestinian civilians as humanly possible in the hopes that this will somehow scuttle Israel's burgeoning peace deal with the Saudi royal government. This is why it came out earlier today that the Gaza ministry has been telling people not to pay attention to Israeli warnings to get out of their buildings. Israel does a process. Whenever anyone suggests that Israel is willfully killing civilians, that is the most ignorant, bigoted, anti-Semitic bullshit ever said. Israel goes out of its way more than any army on earth not to kill civilians, to the point where they literally have a type of bomb that they drop on roofs.
Okay, so here's the big switch, right? Because to say that there's even any sort of atrocities being committed by Israel towards Palestinians, especially Palestinians in Israel-occupied territories, is that's anti-Semitic. Now, again, I can't confirm it, but there are tons of people who are speaking out in regards to the mistreatment of Palestinians in Israel. So why is there so many people doing this? Why is there so many people? Is anti-Semitism just so widespread and out of control that they're just making shit up to make Israel look terrible? I don't know. That's a possibility. It does seem like there is some fuckery afoot. So we'll watch a little bit more of what
shake the building and want people to
here.
Get out. They make announcements on radio to get people out. Meanwhile, Hamas is literally telling people that
and I know he's saying that the military takes civilians seriously, and they're warning them to get out. But again, the military and the police are being accused of crimes against humanity as well against the Palestinian people of Israel. So Ben is Jewish. Of course, he's going to stick to his side. And, you can't put any blame on him for that. And I'm not saying he's wrong, but there is a lot of people who are saying the opposite of what he's saying. And to even acknowledge that is somehow anti-Semitic, which a lot of people feel like the word anti-Semitic gets thrown around to shut down conversation, just like calling someone a racist or calling them, a transphobe or or anti-vaxxer sort of discredits someone so that anything that they say now is menial, it's meaningless, and you shouldn't listen to them because they are this. And they're, putting people in this sort of box that's impossible to get out of.
The IDF's text and voice messages should be ignored. Why? Because they want the pictures of dead Palestinians. Hamas wants pictures of dead Palestinians. Meanwhile, the conflict is going more global. According to the Associated Press, the same day all of this went down, or the following day, an Egyptian police person opened fire on Israeli tourists in Alexandria, killing at least 2 Israelis and 1 Egyptian.
Jesus.
Meanwhile, Hamas supporters all over the world celebrated. Hamas supporters in the so-called West Bank, that would be Judea and Samaria, they celebrated because this is what you do when babies are murdered and when women are killed. By the way, Israel is now, how many mothers have been murdered? Israel is now calling on women in Israel to donate breast milk because so many women have been murdered and their children are still alive, small babies who don't actually have proper nutrition. They're calling on people to donate breast milk. That's how many women were killed. Again, 800 people at least dead at this hour. Here's Hamas supporters in the West Bank celebrating.
Jesus, look at this little ass.
You see the small
kid.
girl atop
girl.
her, atop a man's shoulders
With an
carrying
automatic
what
rifle.
looks like an M16 or an Uzi.
And she has a gun. She's double-fisted. Jesus.
Those are American M4s, rather. There have been suggestions that those American M4s, where are those coming from? If those are American M4s, there have been suggestions they came, wait for it, from Afghanistan, where Joe Biden surrendered to the Taliban. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has so far not joined in on the party. The reason Hezbollah is not joining in on the party is because they have the most to lose. Hamas is about to find out exactly what it means to wake the sleeping giant that is the Israeli military. Hezbollah wants no part of that. If Hezbollah were to start launching rockets across the border, Israel would not go in with ground troops. Israel would go in with the Israeli Air Force, the most efficient fighting force in the Middle East, and they would simply eviscerate southern Lebanon. It just would not exist tomorrow because Israel cannot afford to have 150,000 rockets falling on its cities in the middle of something like this. But, of course, they did praise the situation because Hezbollah is, of course, funded by Iran, which is the terror state behind all of this. Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, another terrorist, he said, it sends a message to the Arab and Islamic world and the international community as a whole, especially those seeking normalization with the enemy, that the Palestinian cause is an everlasting one, alive until victory and liberation. Again, that is the end goal here. The end goal was to prevent the possibility of an Israeli-Saudi peace deal. So while Israel was pursuing peace with the Saudis, while the Saudis were pursuing peace with Israel, Iran was fomenting. Thousands of people cheering. If the God that you cheer seeks the murder of babies and their kidnapping and the rape of women, let me suggest that you're not worshiping God. You're worshiping something very, very different. Meanwhile, celebrations in London, far be it for the West to be exempt from this sort of evil. London is filled with people who are celebrating this cause, which of course is no shock. There's been a radical Islamist presence in London for decades at this point. There are celebrations in London.
So this is live right now, right outside where I live. All of these guys have gathered and they are celebrating the liberation and all these cars.
This is primitives, uncivilized, would be, to say the least of it. When America bombed Afghanistan, was anyone out in the street celebrating? When America dropped bombs in Yugoslavia to stop the slaughter there, were Americans out in the street celebrating? And that was accidental civilian death.
There's Americans celebrating.
Can you imagine Americans celebrating the kidnapping of babies? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine anything like that? Here's pictures from Golders Green. Golders Green is a very Jewish area of London. Apparently, some Palestinian sympathizers, anti-Zionists probably, not anti-Zionist, because there's a big difference. They started smashing windows in Golders Green. In Sydney, mass rallies in favor of the Palestinian terrorists. Remember, these are not rallies in favor of a government. These are rallies in favor of a terrorist group killing as many people as possible. Here is a video from Sydney, Australia.
And they're very happy about what's going on. See, I mean, there's a sickness
Firing
in
fireworks.
that.
on the streets.
Fueled by religious ideology.
Here is video from Rotterdam. Again, all over the world, there are people who believe in this sort of evil. This is not a rarity. In fact, for the vast majority of human history, a huge number of people have been evil, and this continues today. This is video of Rotterdam, people carrying Palestinian flags in the streets, Hamas flags in the streets, after the murder of 800 Jews, the wounding of over 2,000 others. Oh, yes, and on American shores as well. So yesterday, over the weekend,
Here we go.
there was a rally in New York City, a rally by Palestinian supporters, by some of the worst people on earth in New York City. Here is video of some of those celebrations in New York. Celebrations. Celebrate the evil. Celebrate the evil. They're chanting, Palestine will be free. And by Palestine, when they say from the river to the sea, let you know what that means. You've heard that before. From the river to the sea, you know what that means? That means murdering babies. That means raping women. That's what that means.
It means eviscerating an entire group of people. It means displacing them. It means the ending of Jerusalem, of Israel. Which that's fucked up concept. That's a fucked up concept to just be like, let's just eliminate them all. And this is what Jews have had to face for thousands of years. So, look, it's a complex situation. I could never celebrate the murder of all these, innocent people. It's just I just don't. I'm not on board with that. So, let's sort of let's shift away from Ben and get into what's going on with the pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, the pro-Palestinian movement here. So people gathered in support of Israel outside the United Nations and in other parts of New York City on Sunday afternoon. The Security Council held a closed-door meeting. Supporters of Israel rallied outside. An hour before the rally started, supporters of Palestine rallied in Times Square and actually made their way to 2nd Avenue, not too far from the UN. Supporters of Israel denounced the air and ground attacks against early Saturday, which prompted Israel to declare war. Jews and Israelis are resilient. We shall overcome and we will prevail, said pro-Israel demonstrator Sarah Libson. Supporters of Palestine gathered in Times Square in a rally denounced by both Mayor Eric Adams, Governor Kathy Hochul, I think that is, on Saturday. Adams called it disgusting, while Hochul said it was morally repugnant. Those rallying, this wouldn't happen if Trump was in office. Fuck Joe Biden. You think so? Welcome in, DTOM, Dottom USA. You think that's what it is? I don't know, right? I don't know if Trump has that, but we definitely probably wouldn't be in the Ukrainian situation, right? And I agree. Fuck Joe Biden. He's a terrible leader. He's fucking barely cognizant. And we already are seeing Russian intervention in this war. If Ukraine if we weren't wrapped up in giving billions of dollars that we don't have, right? We don't even have that money. We're just sort of printing it out of thin air. Marion, you better quit, Marion Williamson. Bitch, I'm voting for fucking Shaq, okay? I'm voting for Shaq. I can see that point, actually, because Trump, no new wars, right? No new wars under Trump. So I could see that point. I could see that if we weren't involved in this Ukrainian situation, maybe we could have more attention on what's going on with our allies in Israel. So I could see that point. But who knows, right? Who fucking knows? Who knows what is actually would be happening? It's hard to tell. But have Trump say he would have world peace everywhere. We are at war with the deep state. CIA starts wars. Joe Biden gave Taliban $80 billion of weapons from the U.S. Dottum or Deedum or DTO. Shut that door, bro. I agree with that. I agree completely. And it's interesting how people will how fast people will say the deep state doesn't exist, right? It was like, the deep state. So you're telling me that there's not people who are unelected officials who are making decisions behind the scenes? You're telling me that? You're really telling me that the CIA isn't out here overthrowing governments and putting in leaders that we install, like in Ukraine in 2014, or Iraq back in the mid 2000s, or Afghanistan? All of these places that we've gone in and fucking and benefit the industrial war complex, we've gone. Look at the prisoners in Iran, like 6 billion. Iran helps them out. Yeah, right. Yeah, we were talking about that, Donham. We were just watching Ben Shapiro's stream today, and he was talking a little bit about it. But there is, but right now, we're sort of shifting into the pro-Palestine movement and what's involved, because there's horrible atrocities going on in Israel right now. Women are being raped, children being murdered. It's just terrible, terrible things. But on the other side of that, Palestinians do feel, D-Tom, okay, thank you, D-Tom. I appreciate you correcting me, because I would have been Donham. We speak English good, and welcome in. Thank you for being here. So now we're sort of concentrating on the other side of the argument, because there has to be more than just what's being said. Obviously, we're being propagandized. Israel is one of one of our allies, right, in the Middle East, and we gotta sort of. There has to be more to the story than what we're being told, because right now it's just all of a sudden you're going to see a bunch of people with their Israel flags in their profile, right? It was Ukraine, now it's Israel. Now we're just going to go the way of Israel. But why is there such a pushback from Palestinian supporters all over the world? We want peace throughout the world. Exactly. And I agree with that. And that's what this deep state war machine is all about. They only serve corporate interest, right? We saw that hugely in the pandemic. Exactly, a money laundering scheme to extract tax dollars from the American people, to fill the pockets of these international conglomerates, fucking BlackRock, fucking State Street, and fucking Vanguard, who basically own all of it, and even our friend.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
Hey, what happened? You son of a... See, my shit's falling apart.
Brought to you by Pfizer. Fuck you. Pay me.
There you go. We saw this during the pandemic when we were being silenced and we weren't able to speak on what was really happening during the pandemic. How these pharmaceutical companies were controlling governments, and the governments were controlling media. You can't. It's hard to not see deep state, especially after the pandemic. It's hard to not see Nazi. It's hard to look past that when we saw how far these companies went. Again, the Twitter files is a huge example of how government intervenes with, burying the Hunter Biden laptop story right before the election. And it's hard to ignore how all this misinformation, was being censored on these online platforms. Because of the Twitter files, we know now that our government is in direct collusion with these big tech firms, mainstream media, and who's paying the bills? Who's flipping the bills for these politicians and unelected officials to fucking reach out to these companies? It's companies like Pfizer.
Brought to you by Pfizer. Fuck you. Pay me.
Hey, D-Tom, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that, my friend. We're trying to get to our affiliate status, and we're doing it big over here. So I appreciate that follow. Thank you so much. And hey, this is for you.
Hello, and welcome to We Speak English Good TV. I'm your announcer, Ron Swanson, and now I'm asking you to put your hands together in a clappy noise for your host, Mike E. P. Fanfare. Wonderful.
Thank you for that, Fa. I appreciate it. So yeah, we definitely know that there is something more to this than just is Israel is being attacked by terrorists. Which again, there's no downplaying the horror and terrible things that are going on right now in Israel with the Hamas terrorist organization. So, not trying to downplay the death of these innocent folks, but there's more to the story. And so over the weekend we had support for pro-Palestinian supporters protesting all over the world. There was stuff in Sydney, London, and of course New York City. And that's where we're at right now. And I kind of want to look into more of why people are in support of Palestine. Sorry, got to run. We could talk more another day. Thank you for talking and streaming. People need to talk with each other. I agree with you completely. D-Tom is that's the biggest thing. We got to know what's going on, and if we're not communicating with each other, or if only one side of the story gets out there, then bad things happen. So I appreciate the follow. I hope to see you back, and have a great rest of your day. So those rallying in support of Israel condemned the attacks carried out by Hamas throughout the weekend. They said they are concerned for their family members and those from other countries caught in the violence. I don't know how they can call themselves freedom fighters. They're holding hostages. They're holding American citizens, Norwegian citizens, people of Germany, innocent lives that they are taking. The rallies eventually moved to 2nd Avenue. NYPD officers were out in full force, and there were barricades in place to prevent violence. No peace can be had without human equality and justice for all. Palestine supporter Fadi Astan, I can't speak shit. Okay. Sami Stiegman is a Holocaust survivor. In this century, in the 21st century, there is no room for such hate. We have differences. The only way that we can work together and live together is both sides want to make peace. Very true. World peace is what we want. The pain could be felt through every voice and on every face at a community vigil in Bennett Park of Washington Heights. We stand in solidarity with the state of Israel and to denounce terrorism. Representative Adrano, I can't even say that name, who added he'll be in Washington Tuesday to join Joe Biden in unequivocal support of Israel. How many of you have a friend or a loved one in Israel right now? Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine asked the crowd. So I want to find the pro-Palestinian argument, but this was a very pro-Israel argument right here. So I did pull up. I have some stuff pulled up that we need to go through. So we'll take a look at this shit because we got a lot of stuff. So this is an article from a couple years ago from The Guardian, and this is why are Palestinians protesting? Because we want to live. So this is an article based on what I was saying, that there is another side of the story. And now, again, I don't know, propaganda exists, the fog of war exists. So we got to take all of this with a grain of salt. But this is, again, from 2 years ago. I started going to demonstrations when I was 17. At first, I went to protest against Israel's military occupation. Then we also began to protest against the authoritarianism of the Palestinian Authority and Hamas and the sickening rivalry between Palestinian political factions. For Palestinians, protest has become a way of life, a way to be steadfast to preserve. Over the past decade, much of this burden of protest has been borne by individual Palestinian families facing expulsion or violence at the hands of soldiers and settlers. The threat of evictions or demolitions will spark a local protest in the hope of preventing this or that particular outrage. But right now, the attention of the world is on us, not as individuals, but as a collective, as Palestinians. It is not only about one village or one family, or only those in the West Bank, or only those in Jerusalem. what we are in the streets protesting about now is not one killing or one violent raid, but a whole regime of oppression that destroys our bodies, our homes, our communities, our hopes. Just as protests for Black lives that spread across the U.S. last year were not only about George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or any one killing. This is what colonialism does. It suffocates every part of your life and then it finishes by burying you. It is strategic, deliberate process, and it is only obstructed or delayed because oppressors are almost always confronted and challenged by those under their rule. In the end, who wants to be chained down for being born who they are? I wish they would just give us some information. Last week, I was near the illegal settlement of Beit El, I don't know what that means, by Ramallah in the West Bank as the Israeli army sent jeeps rushing towards demonstrators, journalists, and medical staff, firing high-velocity tear gas canisters directly at the crowd. The sound of those canisters spiraling towards us in the dozens still makes me tremble. It reminds me of the day in December 2011 in the village of Nabi Saleh, Saleh Queen, when an Israeli soldier fired a tear gas canister from close range directly at my face, at the face of a 28-year-old Palestinian stone thrower, Mustafa Tamimi, who died as a result of the injury. I remember the face of a 16-year-old Jana Tamimi, his cousin, as she screamed in her fragile voice, "Why did you kill my best friend?" Behind her was the illegal settlement of Halamish. Mustafa's protests were against the settlement expansion and the impunity of settler violence as he and his community were imprisoned in the village with no access to water springs or public services. So when we were watching Ben Shapiro talk about the West Bank, he was saying that they've been supplying water and electricity for decades now, and now we have someone who is saying the direct opposite. And that's what I'm saying. There is voices on both sides, and one side right now is only getting through. And I, again, cannot condone the treatment of the Israeli people right now by Hamas. But, you know, when we look at it, if Mexico just started expanding their borders and occupying American territory, those people would not just sit there and take it. They would definitely fight back. And if you don't have billions of dollars at your disposal, they would create fucking little militias to fight for their land and freedom. So, you know, occupation is not okay. Can't wait to sub here. 18, so close. Thanks, Moving Dutchman. I appreciate you, buddy. I remember the face of then 6-year-old. Okay, that was okay. The fact that these protests are leaderless is a sign of what has been festering for decades among all Palestinians. This is a coming of age of generation born since the pitiful Oslo Accords of 1993 and through 1995, who grew up during decades that only solidified Israel's settlement expansion and grip on Palestinian lives. More than this, it is the continued growth of stamina, endurance, and loss of faith. But at the same time, it is a complete reclamation of faith, not in international policymakers, not in negotiation committees, not in humanitarian observers and NGOs, but in ourselves. Why do you always have to put yourself on the front lines? My mother reprimanded me years ago as she threw away my clothes that were soaked in noxious skunk water sprayed by the Israeli military. Often used in protests in the West Bank, Israeli forces have also been spraying it on the streets of Sakah Jarrah and the homes of Palestinians. It's an attempt to make our lives so unbearable that we are driven out. I wanted to tell my mother, if it isn't me, it's someone else. I wanted to tell her how in Gaza, the unarmed protests in 2018 were met with the sniping down of hundreds as Israeli soldiers turned it into an unrelenting sniper free-for-all, deliberately causing debilitating injuries. But we both knew that what made her so angry was the horrible recognition that we had no choice but to protest. That as long as injustice persists and our dreams for better realities continue to push us towards confrontation, getting soaked with skunk water meant that I was at least alive. This is exactly why we are protesting, because we are ready to be alive. And so that is that is just someone's. This is an opinion piece by a protester who is on the front lines on the pro-Palestinian side. So this is from the Human Rights Watch submission to Universal Periodic Review of Israel. Here's a summary of it. We probably, since my reading skills are so subpar and probably hard to follow, we'll only read. We'll read what the summary says. Israel's serious human rights abuses, in particular, and Human Rights Watch is a very reputable organization. Actually, let's look into a little bit of what Human Rights Watch is before we get into this. Human Rights Watch. Defending human rights. Let's just look at their wiki real quick and see exactly. This is a very very notable, very recognizable name when it comes to human rights. The HRW reader is an international non-governmental organization headquartered in New York City that conducts research and advocacy of human rights. The group pressures governments, policymakers, companies, and individual human rights abusers to denounce abuse and respect human rights, and often works on behalf of refugees, children, migrants, and political prisoners. In 1997, Human Rights Watch shared a Nobel Peace Prize as founding member of the international campaign to ban landmines. It played a leading role in the 2008 treaty banning cluster munitions. HRW's annual expenses totaled $50.6 million in 2011, $69.2 million in 2014, and $75.5 million in 2017. So that's a little bit of history. They've done a lot of good work, and they do research. And try to help people who are experiencing human abuse, and they have a Nobel Peace Prize. But so does Barack Obama, and he killed thousands of brown people. So, take that with a grain of salt, right? So okay, let's go back to our bleh. Okay. So let's read through this summary and just get a little bit of an idea of what this is about, what their idea is on what's going on. Israel's serious human rights abuses, in particular those committed against Palestinians, have worsened since the last Universal Periodic Review in 2018. In April 2021, Human Rights Watch concluded in a 213-page report that Israeli authorities are committing the crimes against humanity of apartheid and persecution against millions of Palestinians. Human Rights Watch reached this determination based on a finding of an overarching Israeli government policy to maintain the domination by Jewish Israelis over Palestinian. See, I'm already losing it. Human Rights Watch reached this determination based on a finding of an overarching Israeli government policy to maintain the domination by Jewish Israelis over Palestinians across Israel and the OPT, the Occupied Palestinian Territory, and grave abuses committed against Palestinians living in the OPT, including East Jerusalem. And let's just look up what this is, because that's a new one for me. So, Occupied Palestinian Territory. Let's just give that a search. Not sure what that is. I have an idea, but I'm not sure what it is. Occupied. I guess we'll go to this fucking Wikipedia. The Palestinian territories are two regions of the former British Mandate for Palestine. Get the fuck out of here. That have been militarily occupied by Israel since the Six-Day War of 1967, namely the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. The International Court of Justice has referred to the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, as the occupied Palestinian territory, and this term was used as the legal definition by the ICJ in its advisory opinion in July 2004. The term occupied Palestinian territory was used by the United Nations and other international organizations between October 1999 and December 2012 to refer to areas controlled by the Palestinian National Authority. But from 2012, when Palestine was admitted as one of its non-members observer states, the United Nations started using exclusively the name State of Palestine. The European Union also adopts the term occupied Palestinian territory with a parallel to Palestinian Authority territories also occasionally used. The government of Israel and its supporters use the label disputed territories instead. They're like, so here's the Gaza Strip and then the West Bank, and the yellow is Area A and B. And then Area C, occupied Palestinian. So these are the okay. That still doesn't make sense to me. Palestinian territories according to green line based on definition. Okay, so all this green right here, this is all, everything that's the West Bank here is occupied Palestinian territory. And apparently Israel keeps encroaching on these spaces, including West Jerusalem. All stolen land. Yeah, I mean, that's seems to be the case. It's stolen by who, though? By Israel. Okay, right. Well, again, Israel, this was sort of a, I mean, it's kind of fucked up when you think about it. If Mexico was to decide that they want to, come into our country because they're being, because Mexicans are being persecuted and they need a place to go, and then all of a sudden the international community says, "Hey, America, go fuck yourself. We're gonna take Texas," and now that is Mexico because Mexicans are being displaced and human rights abuses are going on there, and they need a place to go. So they're just going to take your land. And so that's sort of what happened here. That's kind of an idea for, I suppose, for America, which by saying that is some sort of anti-Semitic slur, right? Just by acknowledging that which is very odd to me when you look at it. And I get that the Jews have been sort of fucked over for thousands of years, but does that give them the right to go and occupy territory that isn't their new state of tequila? Okay. I smell food. They must be cooking. Okay, so the Gaza Strip. In 1980, Israel officially absorbed East Jerusalem and proclaimed the whole city to be its capital. The inclusion, though never formally amounting to legal annexation, was condemned internationally. So there's that big one that's coming in, right? Jerusalem. East Jerusalem, they just sort of encroached and they kept moving their borders and saying, "Hey, nah, bitch, that's mine now. We're just going to do that." Keith is cooking. Oh, cool. Good for Keith. And so the inclusion, though never formally amounted to legal annexation, was condemned internationally and declared null and void by the United Nations Security Council, the Palestinian National Authority in the United Nations, the international legal and humanitarian bodies, and the international community regard East Jerusalem as part of the West Bank and consequently a part of Palestinian territories. The Palestinian National Authority never... Give me a second. Let me get some water in here. I don't know what he's cooking. I know he bought some chicken earlier, some fried chicken, so he might be warming up some fried chicken. But it smells like spices and onions, so I don't know. The Palestinian. Oh, it's a Keith special. Sounds yummy. The Palestinian National Authority never exercised sovereignty over this area, although it housed its offices in Orient House and several other buildings as an assertion of its sovereign interest. Israeli sovereignty over East Jerusalem has not been recognized by the international community on the grounds that the unilateral annexation of territory occupied during war contravenes the Fourth Geneva Convention. The cost of occupation for Israel over 4 decades, 1967 to 2007, is estimated to be about $50 billion. The World Bank estimates its annual cost in 2013 to the Palestinian economy of Israeli occupation of $3.4 billion. So we live the Samaritans. I heard there is a good story in the Holy Book about them. I see. I don't know about them. But what are those sons of bitches? Hold on. I've heard good Samaritans. The story of Samaritan in the Bible is a parable told by Jesus in the Gospel of Luke to illustrate the meaning of loving one's neighbor. It is about a Jewish man who is robbed, beaten, and left half dead on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. 2 Jewish religious leaders pass him by without helping, but a Samaritan who is despised by the Jews shows compassion and takes care of him. I see. Where do they live, though? Spread out, maybe. Yeah. So they're talking about Jerusalem to Jericho, which I don't know where. The Jericho's over here in the West Bank. So yeah, I see. Samaritans are blood related to the Israelites. But apparently they weren't loved back then. So here's Jericho. And Jerusalem is right here. And so this is all this territory that isn't. I don't know who owned it back then. So were the Jews, is the Israelites, are they the ones who occupied or owned that territory, and then they got it taken from them a long time ago, and then mocked Jerusalem and built a temple on holy ground to provoke Israel? I guess see. Samaritans, best known as Israelite Samaritans, are an ethno-religious group who originate from the ancient Israelites. They are native to the Levant and adhere to Samaritarianism, an Abrahamic and ethnic religion similar to Judaism, but differing in several important aspects. So just a little bit of difference in religion and religious beliefs, and they're just like, fuck those guys, I hate them. Dead Sea Scrolls, Proto-Esther fragment, okay, has an obscure phrase about the possibility of a Kutha man returning, but reference remains obscure. Records hopes that northern tribes will return to the land of Joseph. The current dwellers in the north are referred to as fools and enemy people. However, they are not referred to as foreigners. It goes on to say that the Samaritans mocked Jerusalem and built a temple on the high place to provoke Israel. Anything to fucking... You don't believe what I believe? Fuck you, I'll just build a temple on that shit. Suck it, bitch.
It's not my jam. I don't buy jam. I buy honey, and I kiss it on the lips.
Y'all better get this lady! We build it on this temple. We're going to build it on your temple. And fuck your temple. And that's just how it is.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
And then we're going to go to...
Pound Town. Pound Town.
Why are you gay?
Okay, wow. Funny shit here. It still doesn't make sense to me. My brain is not on that wavelength, I suppose. Okay, so sort of coming back to our original point here, learning more about why Palestinians are actually angry. And so we were talking about the occupied Palestinian territory and the grave abuses committed against Palestinians living there, and how that area is not even recognized internationally, yet Israel feels it's necessary to keep spreading out and sort of taking that land and mistreating the people who are on that land. So again, I can see why people are upset, why Palestinians are upset. They're like, hey, this is our land, fuck off. And yet, Israel finds it necessary to keep expanding, even though it's condemned by the international community, which I think kind of, if the international community was going to be involved in putting Israel in that spot in the first place, then you would think they would want to step in and be like, hey, don't do that. We had an agreement. Stop. But they are one of the West's biggest allies in the Middle East. So they just sort of look the other way, I guess. I don't know. Interesting. Major Israeli, Palestinian, and other international human rights groups have also found that Israeli authorities are committing apartheid against Palestinians, as has the UN Special Rapporteur for the Occupied Palestinian Territory and other UN experts, and Harvard Law School International Human Rights Clinic, among others. Indeed, Israel's apartheid is a matter of conscience today in the global human rights movement. More and more other voices, from the former Director General of Israel's Foreign Ministry and ex-UN Secretary General to the governments of South Africa and Namibia and foreign ministers of Luxembourg and France, have also referenced apartheid in relation to Israel's treatment of Palestinians. So it's pretty widely accepted in the international community that there is an apartheid going on within these occupied territories committed by Israel. So I can see, now, this is starting to make sense why people are mad. And Roger Waters, motherfucking Roger Waters, he's talking about this is what he's talking about, right? And this is why he's being labeled as an anti-Semite, which he might just actually be an anti-Semite. He might just say some fucking off the wall shit. So yeah, this is wild shit. This submission covers 6 clusters of grave human rights abuses carried out by Israeli authorities. Still, he's just a cunt. Roger Waters is a cunt. Canceling the cunt that is Roger Waters. He is just such a disingenuous cunt. He really is. He really is. Love his art, though. Love his Pink Floyd contributions. So here it's broken up into 6 parts. It's illegal settlements and widespread confiscation of land from Palestinians, sweeping movement restrictions against Palestinians, unlawful killings and war crimes without accountability, suspension of basic civil rights for millions of Palestinians, and abusive detention practices, forcible displacement and denial of residency rights to Palestinians, and escalating attacks on human rights defenders. So those are some big fucking allegations, and it seems like there's a lot of people who agree with this, including South Africa, Namibia, Luxembourg. Luxembourg. Is Luxembourg is that a country? Is Luxembourg a country? Fuck, dude. Luxembourg is a country, right? I'm so fucking American. Okay, it's Western Europe. Jesus, Mike. Fuck, dude. I'm such a dumbass. Hold on. I'm very American. Very American. So Luxembourg is in the middle of all this shit. So Belgium, Brussels, Frankfurt. So it's next to Germany. Okay. So there you go. Between Belgium and Germany and the Netherlands. All right. Look, I don't know anything. I'm American as it gets, man. I didn't learn nothing in public schools. They gave me a diploma and was like, get the fuck out. We don't want to see your face here anymore. We don't want you here. Take this and go. We're done with you. Okay, and then so this is this leads us to a February 2022 article from the BBC, and we'll go through this, and I think that we will get to the bottom of this situation a little bit. Israeli laws, policies, and practices against Palestinians in Israel and the occupied territories amount to apartheid, Amnesty International says. A new report alleges that the Israeli state maintains an institutionalized regime of oppression and domination of the Palestinian population for benefit of Jewish Israelis. Apartheid is considered a crime against humanity under international law. And let's just I know what it means, cursory understanding, but let's just get a def. Apartheid, international domestic opposition. Apartheid is a policy or system of segregation and discrimination on the grounds of race. It was implemented in South Africa. The word apartheid comes from the Afrikaans, which means separateness. Okay, so, and that's what was going on in South Africa. Okay, and that's what's going on in Israel. So, I mean, I think there's enough evidence and enough people, enough countries recognize it, enough institutions recognize that the apartheid does exist in Israel and in the occupied Palestinian territories. Israel says it absolutely rejects all false allegation in the report. Of course they would. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they deny that shit? A new report, which here's the report, I guess. And this is from Amnesty International, another reputable organization that fights for human rights around the world. But we'll read we'll just go for the BBC version of it. A foreign ministry spokesperson accused Amnesty of recycling lies. Get the fuck out of here. Recycling lies, inconsistency, and unfounded assertions that originate from well-known anti-Israeli hate organizations. So, like what? Luxembourg, France all hate Israel. Harvard hates Israel. I don't know about that. The report denies the state of Israel's right to exist as a nation state of the Jewish people. Its extremist language and distortion of historical context were designed to demonize Israel and pour fuel into the fire of anti-Semitism, they said in the statement. Again, this word anti-Semitism is being used to shut down the conversation. It's being used to be like, hey, you can't even say that shit. It's just like you can't misgender someone or else you're a transphobe. You can't fucking, can't speak out against BLM or you fucking hate black people. It's that same shit to diminish someone's argument because they don't have a better argument to push back with, or they don't want to engage because then they have to acknowledge the points of the other side. And so why acknowledge the points when you can just shut them down by calling them anti-Semites? The Palestinian Foreign Ministry welcomed the report, saying it was a detailed affirmation of the cruel reality of entrenched racism, exclusion, oppression, colonialism, apartheid, and attempted erasure of the Palestinian people have endured. Apartheid was a policy of racial segregation and discrimination that was enforced by a white minority government in South Africa against the country's black majority from 1948 until 1991. Three main international treaties prohibit apartheid, including the 1973 International Convention on the Suppression of Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid. The convention defines apartheid as inhuman acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial group or of persons and systematically oppressing them. And here you go. The Divisional Council of the Cape White Area. This is for the whites. White is right.
Come on, man.
White is right.
Come on, man. Why are you gay?
Okay.
My sample pad can have a whole conversation with itself.
Why are you gay? Come on, man.
Here comes Pound Town.
Pound Town.
Oh, wow. Introduced in South Africa in 1948, the African-led National Party government, black people regarded as inferior, no vote for black people in the national election, racist, segregated in all aspects of life, prevented black people from owning land in much of South Africa. Okay, so we know that just over 20% of Israel's population of 9.4 million are Arabs, many of whom self-identify as Palestinians, while 2.9 Palestinians live in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, which Israel occupied in 1967. In the 1967 Middle East War, another 1.9 Palestinians live in the Gaza Strip, which Israel pulled out of in 2005, but the UN still considers to also be occupied. Right, and we even said, even Ben Shapiro said that the Israel doesn't allow weapons to come in through the West Bank, which means that there's a presence of Israel because they are policing. Which is he's fucking he says that there's no occupation there, but yet we're policing the area, or they're policing the area. That's pretty. That doesn't make sense. More than 600,000 Jews live in about 140 settlements built in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Most of the international community considers the settlements illegal under international law through Israel disputes. So we found that out, right? So we're seeing now what's a bigger picture, right? And I imagine over the next few weeks, as this war continues to build and build, I expect that the American propaganda machine will definitely be pro-Israel and be talking. There'll be all kinds of pro-Israel media spots. They're going to be demonization of Palestine and Iran, which again, Iran does house fucking terrorists. Was it Iran? Oh, thank you, Money. Was it Iran that did? Look, Biden's disgraceful warning to Israel. Uh-oh, what happened? What did fucking Grandpa say now? Israel was hit in several locations by more than 2,000 rockets. Yeah, we know that. At least 700 people dead. And now deleted tweet. President Joe Biden's State Department warned Israel about defending itself and retaliating against terrorists. So this is what Joe Biden wrote, and then they deleted it. Joe Biden demands Israel not to defend itself from terrorist attacks. In a now deleted tweet, the Biden regime demanded Israel stop fighting after the brutal surprise attack on Israel by terrorist group Hamas overnight. And here is the original thing. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is the U.S. Office of Palestinian Affairs. We unequivocally condemn the attack of Hamas terrorists and the loss of life that has incurred. We urge all sides to refrain from violence and retaliatory attacks. Terror and violence solve nothing. So that's from the U.S. Palestinian Affairs. So we unequivocally condemn the attack of Hamas and the loss of life that has incurred. We urge all sides refrain from violence. So that's kind of a one-sided way to say that, because they're trying to say, hey, let's just do peace, right? Let's make peace, not war. So let's, that was kind of misconstrued by Benny Johnson, who I think is kind of a chode. Let me see. Where were we? What I want to look up is the historical placement of the Jews. It was let's go to AI for this. Oh, you whore. We'll go to AI. New topic. So how do I word this? I'm trying to think how I'd word this shit. Has the Jews occupied Israel before Israel became a country? Did Jews occupy Israel before Israel was an official country? Let's see what AI says. History of Jews in Israel before it became an official country. Yes, Jews have had a presence in the region known as Israel long before it became an official country. Here's a brief history. The history of Israel covers an area of southern Levant, also known as Canaan, Palestine, or the Holy Land. In the Iron Age, the kingdoms of Israel and Judah were established entities that were central to the origins of Jewish and Samaritan peoples. According to the Hebrew Bible, the United Monarchy consisting of Israel and Judah existed as early as the 11th century BCE under the reigns of Saul, David, and Solomon. The modern Zionist movement began in the late 19th century and officially became an organized body with First World Zionist Congress held in Basel, Switzerland in 1897. By 1909, Jewish settlers had founded Tel Aviv, the first all-Jewish city in modern Palestine. The United Nations approved the plan to partition Palestine into a Jewish and Arab state in 1947. However, the Arab states rejected the plan. They were like, fuck you, no. Modern Israel came into existence on May 14th, 1948. So this does go back to the Bible times and the Holy Land, which I had that idea that it did, but this kind of helps paint a bigger picture. So this is some ancient shit, right? This is some ancient religious-based bullshit that they've just been going back and forth, murdering each other for fucking thousands of years. And the Jewish people, the poor Jewish folks, always getting shit on, which is not right. It's not right. It's not right. It really isn't right. But damn. It's just I just want to go ahead and just blame religion again. I just want to go ahead and say this is all religion's fault. That what's going on here. But yeah, man, it's a complex situation. And I learned a lot of